It's been said that money dominates all aspects of life. Elections were decided by vast campaign contributions. Elected officials and senators were controlled by vested interests. Corporate and personal greed has reached shocking levels. And despite immense wealth, the Senate was unable to develop economic policies to prevent financial crisis. Despite military might, the Senate proved unable to deal with rogue states on its borders or to protect its citizens against terrorism at home. And ordinary citizens feel powerless to effect change in this political system. Kind of sounds like America today, doesn't it? Wasn't written about America. That was written about Rome, just before the fall of the great Roman Empire. And folks, as the saying goes, if we don't learn from history, we're bound to repeat it. Again, my challenge to you tonight, rather than repeat our failures, let's ensure success. Once again, let's secure our American birthright of freedom. After serving the last 8 years in the Oklahoma State Senate, I recognize that some battle lines have been drawn between the states and the federal government. I recognize that because I've drawn some of them. I've also recognized that the federal government has grown out of control in things outside of their jurisdiction. We've talked about the enumerated powers already tonight. And they have become slothful, operating within their enumerated powers. We talked about Obamacare, cap and trade, illegal immigration. We also have the Federal Reserve, the North American Union, the NAFTA Superhighway, Real ID. All of these things are piling on to undermine the freedom and the sovereignty of every individual in this room and in this nation. Have you ever wondered why our borders aren't secure tonight? It's because our leaders do not want the border secure. They want to vote. During the Bush administration, there was a Security and Prosperity Partnership that I would imagine most of you have heard about in this room. The stated goal for the SPP was to, listen to this. This is a direct quote from the White House website. To eliminate the trade and security borders of North America and to allow for the free movement of goods, services, and people across the U.S. borders. You remember the Real ID Act of 2005? Congress has told the citizens of the state of Texas, the state of Oklahoma, and every other state in the union what kind of information we have to put on our driver's license. Things like fingerprinting, electronic fingerprinting, biometric, machine-readable, high-digitized, machine-transferable facial imaging of us. Even the potential of retina scanning. The Real ID Act was designed to share this information with international databases. Well, folks, let me tell you, Congress has no authority to do such a thing. They have no authority to tell the citizens of Texas what information to put on your driver's license. It tramples on the Constitution. It violates the First, the Fourth, and the 10th Amendment. Now, we've been told that it's okay to do these kind of things because we're going to be able to protect you if we do this. And we've been lulled into a false sense of security this evening because of these kinds of things. Well, I tend to believe what Ronald Reagan said. Government's not the answer. Government is the problem. You want to know what the answer is?
Freedom.
I got it for you.
Freedom.
The answer lies with us. It is time that we face the enemy. And let me remind you where the enemy is tonight. It's in Washington, D.C. I believe, folks, it is time that we cross our Delaware. I believe it's time that we face the politicians eyeball to eyeball and we reclaim our God-given rights of life, liberty, and sovereignty of each individual citizen. I've been in this battle for some time now, and if you're like me, if you've been in the battle for very long, you get you get tired, you grow weary, and you wonder, can you make a difference? Recently, one of our great legal minds said this: one honest voice can be louder than the crowd. One honest voice can be louder than the crowd. That was Reese Witherspoon in Legally Blonde 2 that said that. And I'm not sure about the messenger, folks, but I love that message. One honest voice. Everyone else may be going in entirely the wrong direction. It just takes one person, one idea. Someone willing to take a stand can make a difference in today's world. Well, we have done just that in the state of Oklahoma. You heard it from Charles Key just a few minutes ago. We've taken a stand and we have drawn the line in Oklahoma. Just a few years ago, with the odds against us, with our success out of reach and unattainable, politically we were starving, we were cold, we were discouraged, and we were standing on the wrong side of the Delaware. But we crossed it. And we began the process of restoring the sovereignty of the state of Oklahoma. 3 years ago, I wrote legislation to opt out that unconstitutional act called the Real ID. The Department of Homeland Security, they tried to scare us in the state of Oklahoma. They threatened us. They told us we couldn't get on an airplane if this bill passed. They told us we couldn't travel. They told us we couldn't go into a post office or any federal building. We were told all of these things. And on top of that, they threatened us to withhold our money if we opted out of Real ID. In other words, folks, we were being blackmailed by Washington, D.C.
Yep.
It was pure and plain extortion.
Yep.
It didn't scare us. After about an 18-month battle and a lot of education, a lot of talking to our state legislators and giving them a more clear understanding of what their responsibilities are to protect the sovereignty of the citizens of our state, we opted out of Real ID. And I'm sure Thomas Wood's probably going to talk about that here in just a little bit. But you know what? We can still travel. We can still go see Grandma and Grandpa. We can still go get our mail at the post office. And you know what? On top of that, since this time, 37 of the states have passed similar legislation. They too have opted out of Real ID. Janet Napolitano stood before the cameras about 5 months ago, and she made this statement that gave me goosebumps. She said, "Real ID is dead because the states just wouldn't cooperate." That's the good news. The bad news is Congress now has before Congress the PASS Act, which is Real ID on steroids. Folks, we have to be vigilant. We can never let up. It's our responsibility. 4 years ago, I authored legislation to stop the NAFTA superhighway from coming into the state of Oklahoma. This would have been the largest confiscation of property, private property, this nation has ever seen. 500,000 acres are at risk right here in the state of Texas. 37,000 acres are at risk in the state of Oklahoma. I traveled this state giving speech after speech after speech. And then I told Governor Rick Perry in one of those speeches, if he continued his ill-fated quest to try and take your property, he's going to have to build the largest Texas U-turn he's ever built because it ain't crossing the Red River. I did get a Christmas card this year from Perry.